So, there's another really dumb week has now surfaced from a more accurate source, but according to this, we're gonna have a Nintendo Direct this week. Yay, yay. Why would they have a Nintendo Direct this week? There was a Nintendo Direct coming out the week next week was the huge Nintendo Switch 2 Direct as well. The big Switch 2 Direct is scheduled to take place on the 2nd of April. We assume that Nintendo would opt out of many major events in the immediate lead up. However, a few posts from online has gotten for the mother as well. Corrected by a handy this comes from a Chinese forum poster who rated the entire of the June Direct in 2024. So this is a, slightly accurate source, but we're seeing it in Wednesday apparently as well. And this might be the last hurrah for the Switch 1. I won't be surprised if Nintendo does this type of thing, considering the fact that they want to, have a Nintendo Direct as well for the Nintendo Switch 1. But what would they sell for the Switch 1? If they're still making games for the Switch 1, then what's the point of making the Switch 2? I am confused, I think, as everybody else is. Why would you make a Switch 2 when you still make games for previous consoles? But this always usually happens. For example, with the Switch 1 came out, they were still going to make games for the 3DS. So people who didn't want to move on from the 3DS can still play 3DS games. And the same thing, and Nintendo doesn't really do as often. The last time they did this was the Game Boy Advance, the DS. Game Boy Advance got games all the way into like 2007. I think 2006 was the last year when Nintendo actually put out games for but usually Nintendo moves on from the consoles and like the first year. For example, the DS still got games in the first year of the 3DS's launch, and the Wii still got games in 2012, despite the Wii U coming out. So Nintendo will probably release a few more games to the Switch 1, but most likely, most huge games are going to be reserved for the Switch 2, almost certainly as well. So yeah, I think the best example of Nintendo continuing an old console is the NES to SNES and SNES to N64. With the SNES and NES games, Nintendo still made games to the SNES and NES games well into the N64s and Super Nintendo's lifespan. For example, there were still NES games being made as late as like 1994, and SNES games, I think, as late as like 2000. When the N64's lifespan, they stopped making games in 2001 when the GameCube came out. So yeah, as well. But yeah, Nintendo sometimes does this type of weird stuff, but most of the time, Nintendo doesn't really do that stuff. I do think there will be a few Switch games in 2026. I think that'll be the last year for the Switch 1, and Nintendo will focus mostly on the Switch 2 afterwards as well. I do think, like with the Wii and the GameCube, there will be a few major cross-gen games as well, like ZA and Metroid Prime 4 as well. Yeah. Considering the fact that the 3DS did the same thing too, will release 3DS games on the 3DS and also the Switch as well. Even though the Switch version sold significantly more copies than the 3DS versions as well. Goodbye.